Well, welcome everyone. And definitely this is going to be a great message for y'all to take some notes on. And I would also potentially even say you might want to might want to take some screenshots of some of the things that we're going to talk about. So before we go in, the topic I'm going to be talking about today is going to be the art of negotiation. Really what we're talking about is how to make it where it's a win-win or no deal. Okay, win-win or no deal. And this is something that I think regardless of what we're going to be doing in life, there's always going to be a point in time where you're going to negotiate. And most of us have been negotiating our whole lives. We've been negotiating on, how to get the go to that restaurant or how to go to that movie, or, you could call it whatever it is. But like, there's going to be points in life later on down the road where you're going to negotiate other things, like getting a bank loan. Right now, one of my business partners and I are looking to buy a 8-unit complex, and it's a $1.5 million deal. And in order to get funded by the bank, we need to show assets of up to $4 million or $5 million in assets in order to qualify for the bank loan. And we're in the process of negotiations in order to figure that out. So it's like whether you're negotiating a lease, or you're negotiating a sale, or you're negotiating a bank loan. I mean, there's always going to be something down the road in life where you want to be able to understand the art of the deal. So we're going to be digging in. If you haven't done so yet, before I move forward, I'm just going to ask you, if you haven't done so, please go ahead. I appreciate the like and follow on my new Facebook page. I am offering consistent perspective on there, also on Instagram as well. And you could also go to my website, mikeabramowitz.com, and join my email list. I'm going to be giving out a lot of content on there as well. So we're going to dig into a few different parts. The first part is just more of a review of just selling and marketing in general. And then we're going to go into a breakout room where it's going to be actually a fun little activity I think you guys will enjoy. So first, AIDA, AIDA, AIDA. AIDA, attention, interest, desire, action. If you ever saw Glenn Ross, Alec Baldwin talks about this, attention, interest, desire, action. So a lot of what you will learn before the deal. So the deal negotiation is the action, but the attention. So it's like, how can I get the customer's attention, or how can I get the other person's attention? And then once I have their attention, how can I get them interested? Once I have them interested, then I want to make sure there's a stronger desire before I could put them into action. So this concept of attention, interest, desire, action is a very simple sales process that we want to go through. But in order for us to make the action, which is the actual negotiation, very easy, you want to make sure you did the first few steps the right way. To get their attention, grab their interest, strengthen that desire using pain and pleasure, and then you have some sort of ground to stand on with your negotiation. And that could be with any type of sales or recruiting or anything. Get their attention, create the interest, strengthen the desire, and then we obviously want to put them into action with a actual decision. So it's very simple. Maybe you've seen this before, maybe you haven't, but we could revisit this here in a little bit if you want, if the energy's there. The next thing under the umbrella of negotiations is going to be ABC. You may have heard of this one before. ABC from the same movie, Glenn Ross. Always be closing. You might remember the scene where it says, coffee is for closes. All right. Put that coffee down. So if you never saw the movie, I would, that's your homework assignment. That should be your homework assignment right now, is going to watch Glenn Ross with Alec Baldwin, Kevin Spacey's in that movie. It's a classic. It's a classic sales movie, the old Wolf of Wall Street movie. So
Boiler Room, right?
What's that?
What's the name of it? Boiler Room?
No. This is Glenn Ross, 1992. This is even before Boiler Room. This is before Boiler Room. So this is, it's like a real estate firm, and it's fun. You should check it out. The whole movie actually kind of sucks. The whole movie's not that good, but there's that scene. You can literally just watch the one scene with Alec Baldwin coming in and just ripping them apart. It's amazing. So I recommend it. So underneath this umbrella of closing, though, ABC, always be closing, you need to know what your desired outcome is. You need to know what you're closing. See, in Cutco, it's easy. We know we want them to buy the set at the end of the transaction. It's easy. If we're recruiting, if we're managers, we know we want to bring them onto our team. Like, that's easy. But sometimes if you're in the art of the deal and you're having a negotiation, like if you ever watch Shark Tank, and they'll just drill them. It's like, what do you want? Like, and they'll come into there and they already have an idea of what they want. For example, they'll say, I'm seeking $100,000 for 10% part ownership of my company. So they know exactly what they want and what they're trying to negotiate. So you need to know your end of the deal before you can go into the negotiation. So we're going to come back to that. I'm just laying the framework. We're going to go in the breakout room. We're going to do an activity with this in just a moment. So just laying the framework for you. These are the tools. So hopefully you got the tools. Tool number one, IADA, IDA. Tool number one. Tool number two, ABC, always be closing, meaning you need to know what your desired outcome is. You got to know what your outcome is. Next one is going to be your objection cycle and handling the objections. So as far as handling the objections, this is probably screenshot worthy as far as this slide goes. So, but overcoming the objection, I really like this idea of never do tactics mastery, like this idea here, where it's like level one, the things you never want to do, you never want to be personally attached to the outcome, like never be personally attached to the outcome that you just figured out. So it's like, you ever see Shark Tank and these people, they don't get the deal. You don't want to be emotionally attached to that. Most of them will leave and say, hey, the sharks didn't like it, but I'm still going to be successful anyway, right? Like they're never be attached to the outcome of the deal. That would be the first thing. The second is make sure you keep calm, make sure you fully listen, make sure you're grateful for the people's time. This would be the things you definitely want to do. The tactics is what we're going to talk about. The objection cycle. Specifically, the objection cycle is the tactic and the tool that I'm going to show you. And then, of course, mastery is where you could have deep rapport with your customer. And that's something we could talk about, in the future. But right now we're going to go into tactics. So the tactics right here, ready? You probably know this. You should know this. If you don't know this, you didn't go through advanced training. So the objection cycle, agree, however, alternate solution, ask again. So to demonstrate the objection cycle, it would sound something like this. If I'm in a negotiation, and if I said something like, I'll pull it back up on the screen in a moment. So bank, I'd like to borrow $100,000, and I'll pay you back with a 5% interest within the next 7 years. And they say no. All right, they'd say we'd love to, but we need to see your credit history or whatever it is. If you're in a recruit, hey recruit, I'd like to make you an offer and start joining our team. I'd love to join the team, but I have class at this time. Hey customer, I'd like to enroll you and purchase this $2,000 set. Do you want to get it? My husband, I have to talk to them first. Something, whatever it is, that's the objection. So step number one of the objection is agree. You're not agreeing with them, you're agreeing with how they feel, right? You always agree with the feeling, not necessarily the words of saying. So it's like, hey, I completely understand how you feel. I agree. You know what? If I was in your position, I would feel the exact same way. If I was in your position, I would feel the exact same way. I completely agree. I agree with how you feel. I understand. I've heard this many times before. If I was the bank and I saw me and I saw like what I see on the surface, I'd probably feel the same way. I understand that completely. So what that's doing is it's lowering the guard. You're aligning with them. So you got to align with them. You lower the guard a little bit. And then once you lower the guard, you got to pivot. So imagine if it's like, if this was live, it'd be a little bit easier. But imagine if if I was pulling your arm this way, if I resist, and those of you guys that went to Tony Robbins know what I'm talking about, if I resist, then you're pulling and I'm pulling, and now there's too much resistance between the two of us. But if you're pulling my arm and I just go with you for a little bit, I'm just going to go with you for a little bit until you kind of get tired. And then it's almost like I'm going to go with you. You'll eventually kind of it'll look like we're dancing. And then eventually, once we're kind of in this dance where you're just pulling me around the room, I'm just going to maneuver you and say, hey, let's go this way. And there's a lot of YouTube videos on this you could watch, but it's like, I'm going to align with you and then I'm going to redirect you. I'm going to align with you and then I'm going to redirect you. But if I try to redirect you right away, there's going to be resistance. So you gotta make sure that you're avoiding resistance by aligning with them. How do you align with them? Is by agreeing with how they feel. Agreeing how they feel. Now, I know it says the word however. However, it's really just the transition. I don't really like the word however. I don't really like the word but. The word but and however, it almost creates an argument in itself. It's almost creating an argument in itself. So I like especially if we're aligning with them, there's probably a better word. Hit me up in the chat if you have an idea what that better word was. You know, I'm sure I saw Jessica Shane just pop up. I'm sure she put the word in there. Yeah. There you go. Yeah. And the word is end, because I teach this quite often, because you want to align. So it's like, I totally understand how you feel. If I was in your place, I'd feel the exact same way. And something else I'd also want to just kind of bring to the surface here is, right? In addition to that, what I'd like to just kind of redirect your attention to is this, right? So it's just like transition. However and but, if you read How to Win Friends and Influence People, really aren't the best choice of words, but they're popular transition words, but there's better choice of transition. So if you really want to be an expert in negotiation, master the transition between empathy of what you're empathizing with them, and then your alternative solution. So that transition period sometimes requires a story. Sometimes requires a story. It might require something like this. You know, I completely understand how you feel. In fact, you know, I was talking to my sister, and I had a whole conversation with her, and she brought this up, and she said the exact same thing to me. She felt the exact same way. It's actually quite common. It's quite common. So I understand completely. And, you know, one of the things that my sister realized is, you see, so you could almost use like a third person story as a transition. All of that replaces the word however. Doesn't that sound a little bit better than I completely understand how you feel? However, let me show you this. So you want to really master the art of the transition. Master the art of the transition when you're in the negotiation process. Again, we're going to practice this in a moment. You're going to go on a break. I'm just laying the framework of some tools. You're going to take all these tools and we're going to put you to work. So transition is really what this is. And then offer the solution. The alternative solution, that's where you need to, you want to be in a position where you know how to sell. You got to rebuild the value. So understand that they had a concern. You must offset their concern. Whatever that concern is, you got to offset the concern. You got to strip away and build value. Build that value back up, and then you ask again with confidence. And then you ask again with confidence. And you ask again with confidence, like, so what do you think? And you make it real easy. You want to make it easy for them to say yes. So what do you think? Do you think with that information and with everything we just kind of discussed, could it make sense to at least give it a try? You know, something like that. With everything we just talked about, with everything, you know, what do you think? Do you think we could at least give it a try? With my personal guarantee, could we make this happen? What do you think? Does that work? Does that work a little bit better? Some along those lines. Here's a couple other tools under the umbrella of the objection cycle. Feel, felt, found. This is another great tool, is feel, felt, found. And you heard me kind of say this and allude to this. I completely understand how you feel. A couple of people in the past felt the same way. However, what they found is, and again, there's that word, however, not the best. It's good. It's okay. I'm not saying it's bad. It's just transitioning. You got to transition. So the feel, felt, found is a great way for you to transition. So here's a couple of examples here. So feel. I understand why you'd be concerned about that length of time required to implement this system. So I totally understand how you feel. You know, I've had some customers feel that way in the past. They felt this way because, here were their concerns. If you really want to get advanced, we've had a couple customers express similar concerns, and their concerns were, it was going to require too much energy. It was going to require too much money. They were a little concerned with, whether or not they would get a return on their investment. And then your found is just the solutions to what their concerns were. What they found was they 10x. They actually 10x their what they initially thought. They thought it was going to require a lot of time, but then it actually ended up being less time than they actually thought. Plus, they got more returns of it. We actually have a student right now in our training who's questioning on whether or not she wants to work with the company. And by me investigating, asking some questions, I know Jessica and Alexis and Victoria are in the chat asking a bunch of questions like, what did you originally want? She's like, I wanted to originally work 15 hours a week. So it's like, cool, I understand how you feel. What else did you want in the job? I wanted 15 hours a week with some experience. Okay, what else were you excited about? I wanted 15 hours a week with some meaningful experience, and it was going to offer me a fun work environment. So you wanted something fun, 15 hours a week with meaningful experience. Totally understand. I completely understand. You know what? Most college kids that, are looking to work with us, they want the exact same thing. In fact, I had a conversation with someone recently who that's what she was looking for, but she was concerned it was going to require more time. She was concerned it was going to be too time consuming and whatnot. But really, if you survey people who work the job and do it well, they have found that it requires less than 15 hours a week. It's closer to 10 or 12 sometimes, that it's way more fun working in a virtual environment with young professionals, and the meaningful experience is something that lasts for life. If you talk to them, you could survey them, they'll give you examples of this, and this. They'll show you how they were able to travel, they were able to experience this, they learned self-confidence, they learned all this, and you just use as much and you stack value. They learned how to negotiate. They learned how to build value. They learned how to build rapport. They learned the art of persuasion, how to generate referrals, time management. They learned how to map out a goal and a path to achieve those goals. These are all the real world practical experiences they learned. So they found it was so much more beneficial than anything they originally thought it was going to be. So I'll tell you what, I know there's some concerns out there, and some people have had those same concerns in the past. Why don't we try it out for a couple of weeks and see what you think? Worst case scenario, you get some meaningful experience for your resume, you meet some new friends, and make a little bit extra money. And then you still don't have a job in 2 weeks because you just quit and you just go find another job, no problem. Best case scenario, maybe you call this home for the next couple of years through college and pay your way through school like me. So what do you think? Do you want to give it a try? So the found is not, sometimes it's not just this short blurb. Sometimes the found, you really need to sell it. You need to really sell it. So that's just a real practical, a real example that we're experiencing right now in the recruiting process. So what we got so far, before we go into these breakout rooms, we got IDA, we got know your outcome, ABC, closing towards something. We got the objection cycle, the feel, felt, found, and lastly is the win-win or no deal. Win-win or no deal. Okay. This is from Stephen Covey. Stephen Covey, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. This is habit number 4, win-win or no deal. It's a great book. I highly recommend it. So there's all these different umbrellas of me and you, right? Me and you. So there's like, I win, you lose. I lose and you win. I just win, right? I lose and you lose. I win and you win. Win-win, or it's a no deal, right? Like that is essentially what we're getting to. Win, win, or no deal. We must get here. So if you look at the Stephen Covey, it looks something like this, right? So it's we're not going to go into a deep dive here of consideration and courage, but you essentially want to get into this box over here, where it is a no-brainer, clear as day win-win, where it's like, I respect you fully. I respect you fully, and I also respect myself. And if it is not a win-win, it is a no deal. It must be clear as day, easy win for both of us. And what I love about selling Cutco is we know that it's a good deal for them. We know that it's forever guaranteed. It's always going to be a win for them. What I love about recruiting for Vector is I have such conviction that I know that if they are willing to just go through the program, that they are going to benefit from the experience way more than what I'm going to get from them working with the company. So there's that, I know that's 100% aligned. But if, let's say if you were selling like your refrigerator on Craigslist, you know, and you're like, this refrigerator kind of sucks, but I got to get rid of it. You got to have that consideration where it's like, I got to make sure it's a win for them, that it's like, it's a right price point, you know, and it makes a lot of sense. So this is a really good metric, something to consider. This is a new concept that that might be helpful too, is something called BATNA, the best alternative to a negotiated agreement. So this is a way for you to say, if you're getting to an agreement and you cannot get to a win-win, your BATNA would be, all right, let me have a backup to my original. Like it's almost like that would be considered your drop down. Like, I would like for you to work with us for 2 weeks, but my drop down might be, why don't you try it for 5 appointments? So that would be like your BATNA in that case. You know, the first negotiation would be 2-week trial. Then it's like, no deal. Objection cycle. Let's try it. Let's try a drop down or a BATNA. Why don't we try 5 appointments? So that would be like the alternative path. It looks something like this. And this is where we're going to go into our activity in just a moment. So you have the buyer and you got the seller. So a BATNA, the buyer has a point that they really want, and then there's a point that they really don't want to move past. The seller has a point, and then they have a point where they really want and a point that they really don't go past. That's why there's this they call there's ZOPA is like a word for it, but the zone of likely agreement is somewhere in between here. This is where the deal typically happens. You know, if you're selling Cutco, it would be like, aspiration, I want to sell the homemaker for, you know, $1,500. They want to buy the homemaker set for like $700, right? And then there's this like zone of likely agreement that might be like a first call special with some free stuff and get it down to like a $1,250 range or something like that, right? So this is a really good diagram. So what we're going to do for this exercise, so I'm going to, since I could create these breakout rooms, so what we're going to do is we're going to start with creating 2 breakout rooms. I'm going to recreate them. It's going to be 7 of you in each. This is going to be good. Okay.
Hey, Mike, before you give before we give direction for the breakout rooms, you mind if I add in a couple, one quick thought?
Yes, I just want to make sure just to set the groundwork for these breakout rooms real fast, and then,
Okay,
you
perfect.
can talk. Is that okay?
Yep.
So how this is going to work, I'm going to put you in 2, I'm going to be 2 breakout rooms. It's going to be 2 groups of 7. Okay. And in your breakout room, you're going to be giving some instructions. So one breakout room and then the other breakout room will have 2 different instructions. Essentially, the both of you are going to be in 2 different ends of a deal. Then you're going to come back, okay? And then we're going to put you in breakout rooms with somebody from the other end of the deal, using the tools that you just learned. So you're going to pull out your IDA. You're going to pull out the objection cycle. You're going to pull out the feel, felt, found. You're going to pull out the BATNA. You're going to pull out all the negotiation tools that I just showed you. So hopefully you took some notes, because this is where you're going to be able to implement them. So just to lay the framework, you're going to go in 2 different breakout rooms after Andrew talks. You're going to be given some instruction. Then we're going to come back here, and then you're going to be put in a room with just one other person where you're going to be able to negotiate, and you're going to go back and forth until you come to an agreement. And then when you come back from your agreements, we're going to see what you all landed on. And that means there'll be 7 different agreements that take place, and we're going to see where the negotiation got to. It should be pretty fun. So let me bring up Andrew before we go into that. What would you take it over? Whatever you'd like to share before we do that.
I love it. Yeah, I just wanted to echo a couple quick things that Mike said that I think are important for our group to hear. So, and before you guys even go into this exercise, the objection cycle, the agree, make them feel understood, but however, and whatever that is, handle the objection, present new solution, offer, and then the last step is ask again. Out of those 4 steps, most people in life do 2 of them. And most people that don't have a lot of experience or training in this area do not do 2 of the steps. Which of the 2 steps are the ones that most people usually miss out on or don't do a good job of in that cycle? Someone can just shout it out and mute yourself. Jess, Chelsea, Nick.
Agreeing.
And
Ask again.
ask again. Okay, boom. Those are the 2. So here's what I want to say. If you guys ever hear people, if someone's negotiating and it sounds like an argument, it's because the first and the last are not happening. It's just but blah 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 blah, but blah 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 blah. And people are just going back and forth. Anyone can rebut an answer or try to argue, but actually going through a cycle where someone goes through this process is a different story. So one more thing. So the first thing is, again, it's the most important thing that Mike mentioned again about, the first part is not just understanding them, it's making them feel understood. So when someone feels like you understand where they are coming from, because until someone feels like they're actually understood, nothing you say matters. It's going to go in one ear and out the other because they don't think you actually have an understanding of them. When they feel like you're on their side, it's different. Okay. This last part is making sure that you ask again. And this is the big key whenever you're having a conversation with the rep or with a customer. It's not just handling the objection. It's making sure there's that follow-up process and question. So is that something you'd like to get today? So would you, hey, so Jess, or Joey, could you at least give yourself a shot and try it out for 2 weeks? Would you be open to at least doing that? Right. So I hear managers all the time handle the objection, say the right thing. And then it's just like, so yeah, so what do you think? And it's not like taking control or offering something that solution, like making it an easy yes, giving them, asking the final question. And handling it. So you got to complete the full cycle, not just do a part of it to really handle an objection well. And the last part, that thing I was going to add is just making sure that you have to, the objection cycle works when you know what the real objection is, but you have to actually know what the real objection is. And 90% of the time, we are going to get smoke screen objections, aka they're going to tell us something that's not the real reason. So before you even get into the objection cycle process, you also first have to ask questions and not just make the person feel understood, but actually understand them. Actually ask questions to see what is it that's holding them back. Is it really her husband? Okay, Miss Jones. So if you went and got your husband right now, if we called him and he said yes, we'd be able to go ahead and make moves with this. Well, it's not just that. Okay, cool. So there's something else. It's not just the husband. There's actually a different objection. You got to figure out what the real objection is to be able to isolate that objection and then handle it. That's just one extra tip that I wanted to add there before we go into the exercise. So everyone still know the directions for the exercise? Mike, you got the breakout room set up?
Yep. So what we're going to do is we're just going to do 2 breakout rooms real fast. And I'm just going to hop into each real quick just to give you your instructions. And then you're going to come back here. So this is going to be really quick. I'm just going to give you the instructions for your role. And then we're going to come back here and then I'll do the individual breakout rooms.
I love this.
Okay. So let me, I'll take a picture so I don't, so I know which the 2 teams are. Okay. And then.
If you want, Mike, you can open them up and I'll be able to see them. Once you do that, I can send it to you.
Okay, cool. So let's open it up and let me make the settings. So it takes a 10-second timer. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to assign.
If we lose one,
I'm going to assign one of you from each team to a room.
I think Joel's is just having Wi-Fi issues.
oh, good.
Okay, good thing I took the picture. I just messed up, so it's good. That's why I took the picture. Bear with me for a second. Start thinking of your strategy. Actually, while I'm doing this, why don't you hit me up in the chat with your takeaways from anything like the IDA or the ABC or any of the stuff that you learned so far, just so I have my own feedback. I'd be curious.
Alexa said win-win or no deal. Wins have to be clear, no gray area. Alexis, knowing the real objection, not just the smoke screen. Transitioning with and. However, tell a story to transition. You can drop down with negotiations, align with them first, stacking the value before asking again. Bingo.
Okay. Cool. So you're going to be put in this room with the next person. Okay. You will have how I don't know, since I was off on the time, how much time do I have left for my message?
How much time do you need, Mike?
Well, I'd like to give them enough time to actually negotiate, and then I'd like to come back and have enough time for them to discuss. So I would.
Yeah, let's try to be probably 110, 115, 115. Or like how much 5 minutes for the breakout
How
room?
much more time do I have for my talk, like in general?
I was trying to fit it, wrap us up by like 110. We can go to 115.
Oh, so you want me to be done at 1:15? So that leaves you guys, we'll give you guys, we'll do 7 minutes for your negotiation. So you guys get 7 minutes to negotiate. Okay. And then we'll bring you back at 1:10. And then for the last 5 minutes, we'll see what you guys came up to. Got it? You ready? Here we go. Let's see where they came up to. Let's see the art of the deal.
Yeah, I told him no.
What was it?
Let's see.
1,300 flat, and I was like, I'll do 12.
What was that, Alexis?
You wanted to post in the chat box, Mike, where they came to
So-
with each of their groups?
So yeah, so I'd like let's see where each group came to. So let's do one at a time. So you could actually you could unmute. So we had oh shit, I didn't take a picture of that. Let me see. Oh, I have it right here. So we had, let's go to the first one. We had Susan and Victoria. We had Lindsay and Miracle, Nick and Taylor, Audrey and Nick, Gelsis Jess, Anthony Ramirez Parker, and Alexis and Miles. Cool. Let's see what you all came up to. Let's see what you got. Anthony and I were close to an agreement, but never got there. Okay. Let's see what did we get to?
Post in the rest of the chat. No deal.
So Anthony, no. So Parker and Anthony, no deal. Alexis, no deal. Taylor and I needed more time.
1350, Jess and
for-
Gelsis.
for
Who
Jess
is
and
the
Gelsis.
landlord?
So
Jess.
wait, Nick Franklin, and wait. And Audrey, Nick Franklin and Audrey. You guys got to 1,400.
It was a little bit more complicated than that. Like, when you're talking. It's 1,400 and rights to the hypothetical gym. The hypothetical gym that I own in this situation, I gave her the rights to that too.
Oh, okay.
1,400.
1,200 a month plus free cut go. Susan Victoria is still negotiating a bonus gift. So let's take the last 3 minutes real fast. And let's have a conversation. What'd you get? What'd you like about this? What'd you get? What are you thinking? What were some things that showed up? You could raise your virtual hand. You could just start talking. Let's go to Victoria and then Jess.
So I was super impressed with Susan's initial offer. Like I was like, I know we both had the same amount of time, and she came at me with like a really great proposal. And then I had to really think on the spot and, come up with something that I hadn't had much time to think about. And I just thought it was really good because that mimics real life when you're not always going to have time or you're not always going to anticipate what was going to happen. Like I didn't really know what was going to happen, and she just came right at me. So it was really great thinking on the spot, being creative. It was
And
fun.
were you the seller or the buyer?
I was the buyer.
Got it. You were the buyer. Okay, cool. So she just came out and said, "Here's my offer."
Yeah, and she gave me
Nice.
like such details. It was like as if she knew what she was talking about apartment complexes. I was like, this is really impressive, but unfortunately.
Nice, Susan. Cool. Thanks for sharing, Victoria. Let's go to Jess and let's go to Parker.
Well, as you were going through your talk, Mike, I saw that like I feel like that the thing that I could have improved on as you were talking was like really understanding. So I took that, and Jess was talking about like renting this out for her family and the beach. So I was repeating all that back to her every single time. Like, yeah, I know that this is really important for like your family. Like you'll have everyone coming here, kids running on the beach. You want something that's like of value. And it totally makes sense. So I really liked how I could take that from your talk of like, I feel like that's what I miss sometimes is like really repeating it back. And like painting the picture and implementing it. It was really fun.
Nice, nice. Negotiate. The art of the deal is fun. I'm telling you, negotiation is fun. That's you've. How many of you have ever heard me say when they say no, that's when the game begins, right? You ever hear me say that before? Now you kind of have an idea of what I mean by that. Like it can be fun when you know the rules of the game or when you know what you know what you're doing. So let's go to Parker, and then we might have might have time for maybe one or two more.
Yeah,
And
so
I'll tie a bow.
ours was pretty funny. We were very grateful people. We thanked each other after pretty much about everything that we said. But yeah, we were getting a kick out of it. But in our situation, Anthony was actually he just had no money. So I had to think outside the box, and I offered him a payment plan to pay it over the next few months. But he still just said he didn't have the money. But it was cool to kind of think like, and just like hearing what everybody else did. Like there's so many different routes you can go. You just kind of have to be creative with it. So I think it was just, it was just a good little experience to have and kind of laugh through because it can be fun.
Yeah. I love what you said. It was we were so thankful for each other. Thank you so much for that. I could totally see that happening. That's cute. I like that. Anyone else want to feel heard? One or two other people want to feel heard before I toss things back. I just tie a bow on this and toss things back to Andrew. Feel good? Cool. So I want to tie a bow on this by showing you what I showed each of you. Now you might already know this, but here's what I gave to each group. So the group A, I said, you want $1,500 for the rental unit and are willing to take $1,300. And then the buyer, you want to spend $1,000 and are willing to go up to $1,250. So each of you essentially were on the aspiration points over here, and the zone of likely agreement did not cross paths. So there really wasn't a zone of likely agreement without budging or getting creative to what Nick and Audrey did. So I essentially positioned you where without any type of creativity, it should have been no deal because it wasn't a win-win. And I don't know if like really that's what I wanted to kind of just see what would happen. And I really love that the creativity showed up. And I also love that it was tough for you to come to an agreement because of this this concept right here. So just to kind of tie a bow, you guys all learned some great reminders, whether it be IDA, and how to use that. Always be closing. Know what your desired outcome is. How do you incorporate just understanding the sales objection in the process, using the objection cycle, using feel, felt, found. And just understanding you got to make sure you know what you're willing to accept, but you also want to have some level of consideration for the other person as well. And if it's no deal, that's totally fine. That's totally fine. So if you want more consistent perspective from me outside of Vector, inside of Vector, you can feel free to check out the Facebook page, check out my website. I'd love to have you join my email list as well. I have the free journal, the guided journal questions. If you join my email list, the text grab to 66866, or you could go directly to my website and just enter your information there. You join my email list and you'll just get blog posts and content and stuff like that. And one of the things that is a small ask, and hopefully Andrew's okay with that, is I'm going to be wanting a testimonial video. So from any of the workshops I've given, CVI or negotiation or time management or any of that stuff, if it's helped you at all, I'd love for you to send me Mike Abramowitz testimonials, because it's going to kind of help me with my endeavors of just taking on coaching clients right now. So I'd appreciate that. If they're genuine and real, and you would want to help me, I'd love to get some of those from you, for me, not for the business or branding, just myself. So that's what I got. Thanks everybody. Hopefully I got some value.
Thank you, Mike. Let's get some snaps and claps for Mike. Ladies and gents, here's what we're going to do. We're going to take a quick break, and then I'm going to dive into our last message and we will wrap up. But I want to make sure it's good on time, so we're not going to take a 15